Chapter 1880, Six Sun Night. He raised his horse's hooves and ran across the sea at an extremely fast speed. As a centaur, Percival was most proud of his speed. When he ran, even Huahua, who was lurking in the sea, could hardly get close to him. Percival put his two swords at his sides and took out a golden hunting bow from his back. He ran forward while pulling the huge hunting bow. It was a very strange bow, with only the bow body but no arrow. It was 100 meters long, even longer than Percival himself. He held the hunting bow in his left hand and clenched the air with his right hand. A mist-like supernatural power slowly took shape and turned into a bowstring. When he pulled the hunting bow, 10 supernatural arrows were also condensed. He pulled the huge hunting bow into a full moon shape, and a terrifying aura filled the air around him. Huahua, who was being chased like a mosasaur under the ocean, sensed the danger. Swish, swish, swish. 10 huge arrows flew out from the bow strings and shot towards Huahua. Huahua launched the supernatural cannon under the ocean without hesitation. The red energy cannon exploded under the ocean, instantly causing a huge tsunami. Boom, boom, boom. Huge columns of water shot up into the sky, forming a giant mountain of sea waves. The 10 arrows shot over and opened up 10 passages, but their power was greatly reduced by the seawater. Huahua suddenly jumped out from the waves and bit an arrow in her mouth. Crack. Its fangs exerted force suddenly and bit an energy arrow into pieces. Other arrows also shot towards it from all directions and angles, trapping Huahua. Huahua smashed one arrow with one claw and grabbed another arrow with the other claw. Even the arrows that attacked from the side and rear were caught in its claws at an incredible speed and angle. When Percival saw this scene, his eyes slowly widened and a look of disbelief appeared in his eyes. Giving cats powerful superpowers is simply cheating. In the world created by the Creator, cats are simply perfect creatures. Beautiful, fast, strong, intelligent, and flexible, the ancient Kermit kingdom believed that cats were messengers of death because they were too perfect. Some even believe that this will be the creature that replaces humans in the future. Percival ran as hard as he could, drawing his bow and shooting an arrow at Huahua. The arrows shot from the hunting bow are extremely powerful, and each arrow that falls into the sea will create huge waves. But in Huahua's eyes, his arrow was not as fast as she had imagined. Everything captured by dynamic vision appears to be in slow motion to ordinary people. Huahua roared, and all the hair on her body suddenly exploded, standing up like steel needles. Before Percival was about to launch the next round of shooting, its attack broke out first. Dense cat hair burst out from its body, like a dark cloud covering Percival. A series of buzzing sounds rang in Percival's ears, and his eyes were filled with gloom. Percival felt a headache when he saw the dense attacks. He had no choice but to change back to the 2 scimitars and wave them in front of him tightly, forming a huge barrier. Ping pong pong! The sound of collision continued. The cat hair was as sharp and heavy as steel nails, and Percival had a hard time resisting. After he finally blocked this round of attacks, the roaring sound in his ears rang again, like an underwater volcano erupting. When he looked closely, the scene before him left him dumbfounded. He actually saw a huge black ball, carrying a large amount of seawater, rolling towards him. Cat chariot. The beast's fighting style does not require any fancy stuff. Its original physical fitness enables Huahua to have fighting power comparable to, or even surpassing the top-level enhanced mutants. It completely wrapped its body with sharp and thick hair, then curled up into a huge ball and rushed towards Percival like a hedgehog. It has a huge body, with extremely sharp spikes all over its body, and it has a terrifying speed. It's simply a mountain of flesh covered with spikes. If hit by a single blow, even the thickest layer of defense would be penetrated directly. Even if it could block the spikes outside, the impact was not something the carbon-based creature's body could withstand. Boom! The cat chariot chased towards Percival, and for a moment Percival had no idea how to break through its defense. So he could only flee in a panic. Boom! He jumped up from his original position with all his strength, avoiding the first round of attacks, and a wide passage was opened up in the sea beneath him. However, before Percival could catch his breath, the cat chariot turned around and continued to rush towards him. WTF. Percival couldn't help but curse. Then he ran away with all his 4 hooves. Boom. The cat chariot was chasing closely behind. On both battlefields, the aliens, beasts, on Zhang Yi's team had the upper hand. The battle situation made the faces of the people from the Knights of the Round Table become serious. How could this happen? Pure night, Gawain muttered to himself, as if he couldn't believe what he saw. The aliens in their team are so powerful. This is impossible. Especially the members of the Knights of the Round Table who once went to the underground demon kingdom in the southwest region with Lancelot. They were unwilling to believe their eyes when they saw this scene. They had fought with Huahua, Liang Yu, and others before. Although the opponents were strong at that time, they were only slightly stronger than them. But now, that woman and even that cat have become powerful inhumans at the Black Chariot level? Is this correct? Is this reasonable? Gawain and others looked at each other, but if they had to blame anyone, they could only blame their own lack of strength. Among the Knights of the Round Table, they are also among the weakest ones. King Arthur only cares about the results when doing things. The resources he obtained were also given to the knights with the strongest strength, talent, and best record. This creates the Matthew effect, which causes the strong to become stronger and the weak to become weaker. Merlin looked at the 2 battlefields, frowned, his eyes full of incomprehension. How could this happen? It doesn't make sense. They shouldn't be so strong. The Knights of the Round Table have their current strength because we fought wars for 3 years and went deep into Atlantis twice. We obtained the treasures in the ancient ruins. But what did they rely on? A bold guess emerged in his mind. Perhaps what Zhang Yi's team obtained in Fremons before was not as simple as it seemed. That's right. Zhang Yi cheated 2 sacrificial spirits from King Arthur's team and Morana's team at that time, and he also knew about this. But even if you obtain the spirit of sacrifice, you still need time to digest it and stimulate your own potential. On the other hand, Liang Yu and the cat don't look like they have just been promoted. Chaos. Merlin muttered Zhang Yi's title, and he began to pay more and more attention to him. On the other hand, on Yang Xinxin's side, everyone did not show the slightest surprise at the battle situation before them. They knew very well how strong Liang Yu and Huahua were. The only thing we need to worry about now is Chunlei. Uncle Yu looked at the last battlefield, where Fatty Su is facing off against Sun Knight Gawain. After seeing the picture, his brows furrowed tightly. It seems that Chunlei has encountered the most troublesome opponent. This is really bad. On the Knights of the Round Table side, everyone also turned their eyes to the battlefield. If Gawain's condition was also worrying, then they would totally be unable to accept it. After seeing the battle situation, everyone breathed a sigh of relief. That's great. The fat guy on the opposite side is not that strong. Morning night, Tristan said with a smile. He patted his chest and breathed a sigh of relief. Gawain looked at the fat man in the picture with complicated eyes. He and Fatty Su had spent some time together at the National Library of Nash Country, and he also got to know the academic leader of Nash Country. It's a pity that Shuezong was accidentally killed due to a misunderstanding. Tristan saw the expression on Gawain's face. He raised his eyebrows and asked jokingly, Gawain, my dear pure knight, you should have met these people when you went to Huashu Kingdom. How strong is that fat man? Gawain thought about it. What is Fatty Su's strength? Does he have the ability? At that time, he was obviously very weak, but he still pretended to be a master to deceive him. He's just a useless fat man. Gawain said calmly. That would be great, Tristan said with a smile. He crossed his arms and continued to observe the battle on the battlefield. I knew it. Chaos Team is only made up of aliens from a small seaside town in Huashu country. How could there be so many powerful aliens? They all felt that Huahua and Liang Yu were the other party's most capable aliens. It was indeed very difficult for Fatty Su to fight against Sun Knight Gawain. As soon as the battle started, he was suppressed by the opponent. At this time, he was standing on an icy sea, gasping for breath, with signs of burning on his body. Fortunately, the combat uniform only looked burnt but was not actually damaged. After all, this is the exoskeleton armor made by Liu Karen himself. It is a little weaker than Zhang Yi's armor made from the body of the six-winged King Ichigo, but it is also a technology at the level of the 10 demon gods. But fortunately, we have this kind of armor protection. Otherwise, Fatty Su would have been burned to ashes in that attack just now. In front of him, above the ocean, a tall bald man stood between the sky and the sea. His body was burning with raging flames, and wisps of yellow with red flames rose slowly and condensed into an enormous sun above him. Sun Knight Gawain, his ability is Sun. A person with ice and snow abilities, the darling of the Ice Age. What a pity, the person you met today is me. The Sun Knight, Gawain. The ice and snow that you are so proud of will all melt in front of me, Gawain said to Fatty Su with a regretful voice. The layer of frost armor covering his body melted quickly in front of Gawain and could not form an effective defense at all.
Hot.
The temperature in the air has reached an alarming level, and the intelligence system reminds Fat Su that the outside temperature has exceeded 90 degrees Celsius. Especially near Gawain's body, the temperature reached an alarming level. At this temperature, Fatty Su's ice and snow abilities will be greatly weakened. Moreover, since the battlefield is the ocean, freezing the sea water into ice to attack the opponent is much more difficult than on land. I absolutely cannot lose this battle, Fatty Su said while gritting his teeth, because if I lose, I will lose face. The intelligence system kindly reminded, it doesn't matter, your face is not worth much in front of other people in the team. Fatty Su's facial muscles twitched violently. Thank you so much for your reminder. You're welcome, it's what I should do. Fatty Su didn't have the mind to talk nonsense with it, because he had to take control of the initiative on the battlefield in his own hands. Fatty Su plunged his hands into the sea water and activated his ice and snow abilities to their full potential. Blue light flashed in his hands. In an instant, the sea water, with him as the center, began to freeze rapidly downwards as if ice flowers were forming. Crack. A large area of the sea surface was frozen, 2 kilometers, 3 kilometers, 4 kilometers in radius. The frozen area is getting larger and larger. Gawain looked at Fatty Su's behavior, and his eyes were filled with even more compassion. What's the point of you continuing this futile behavior? He raised his right hand towards the sky, and the next moment, the huge sun rolled down in the direction where Fatty Su was. Boom! Wherever the sun passed, the sea water evaporated in large quantities, and Fatty Su's trend of freezing the sea was thus stopped. The seawater that had frozen into solid ice quickly melted into liquid form. Big avalanche. Fatty Su suddenly exerted force with both hands, as if he wanted to overturn the entire sea, and raised his hands with all his strength. At this moment, he actually snatched out a huge snow mountain from the sea. The seawater under the ocean was churning, and due to the extremely low temperature, rolling white ice and snow formed during the churning. The snow mountain was controlled by Fatty Su and floated up, then suddenly exploded. Under the influence of the waves, seawater, ice fragments, and huge icebergs all rushed forward together. The height of the wave exceeded 300 meters. It was a horrific sight rarely seen in human history, a huge ice and snow tsunami. Fatty Su tried to use the sheer amount of ice and snow to drown Gawain before he could melt them. Self-righteous. Gawain's voice was still filled with compassion. When the huge sun descended from the sky, before it approached the ice and snow tsunami, it had already melted a large amount of ice in the air. There is no need to get close to the sun. The temperature will naturally come along with the radiation. The huge wave was directly turned into an ordinary tsunami by the sun. It passed through the huge iceberg and fell towards Fatty Su. Fatty Su could feel the burning heat. If we were hit head-on by this sun, the consequences would be disastrous. At this moment, he was no longer protected by Zhang Yi, Uncle Yu, and others. He was alone. He can no longer rely on others but himself. Cold hands and feet are the instinct of living things to escape when they encounter danger. But he didn't want to escape, and his mind was clearer than ever before. Was this a revolving lantern? No, it's not. It was his reaction to wanting to save himself in a critical moment. When frost meets the sun, it seems like they are naturally restrained and are an unsolvable opponent. But Zhang Yi clearly said that ice and snow aliens are the darlings of this world, right? Think about it. We must think of a way to crack the problem. We can't just lose like this in such an embarrassing way. A lot of things came to his mind. He has been following Zhang Yi over the years. Although he does not participate in the frontline battles most of the time, when Zhang Yi fights, he will also quietly observe in the shadow space. Think carefully, how do those powerful beings, those world-class aliens fight? Morana, yes, Morana. Su Chunlei's brain is not stupid, but he is not a person with a very high IQ either. At this critical moment, the simplest solution he could think of was to imitate. Think about it, if Morana, the world's top ice and snow alien, was here, what would she do? Morana's special weapon is Absolute Zero, which makes molecules almost static. I heard from Miss Yang and the boss that lowering the temperature will slow down the movement of molecules, and raising the temperature will speed up the movement of molecules. So, based on Gawain's and my abilities, it shouldn't be that I am restrained by him. Rather, we restrain each other. Calm down and think carefully. I am not in an absolute disadvantage. In an instant, Fatty Sue, who was on the verge of life and death, became clear-headed. That's not the real sun. The burning of this sun is the release of his special abilities. I just need to lower the temperature of the entire space to consume his abilities. Make the sun no longer scorching. Fatty Sue recalled Morana in his mind. He was not Morana and did not have such a genius ability. But it is still possible to copy others. Fatty Sue gritted his teeth and clapped his hands together, and the power of ice and snow was suddenly released indiscriminately in all directions. Blue light burst out instantly with his hands as the center, illuminating the sea area. The temperature in the air was quickly suppressed, and the scorching sun became a little dimmer. Fatty Sue was overjoyed. He knew he guessed right. The sun continued to fall in his direction, but the entire space around him had turned into Fatty Sue's domain of eternal ice. Fatty Sue couldn't do what Morana did, making the movement of molecules almost static, but with an ability index of 18,000 points, he could slow down the movement of molecules in the entire space. The energy released by the blazing sun confronts the eternally frozen realm. By the time it landed in front of Fatty Sue, it had become much smaller. Fatty Sue was greatly encouraged. He stretched his right hand into the sea, and the sea water condensed into a huge weapon, which he held in his palm. It was a heavy 9-toothed rake that was more than 2 meters long. He is not proficient in technique, so this heavy long weapon suits him well. No matter what, I can still help dig the ground when I have nothing to do. Fat Sue roared at the setting sun above his head, and then he clenched the ice-blue 9-toothed rake in both hands and smashed it hard. Bang! He swung the 9-toothed rake in a circle, drawing a perfect arc in the air and smashing hard on the sun. In an instant, the huge fireball exploded, and broken fragments of fire fell on the ice. Crack! The ice under Fatty Sue's feet shattered, and the entire sea was filled with huge floating ice. Huh! Gawain tilted his head and looked at Fatty Sue, who was now full of fighting spirit. You seem to be different. But he slowly raised his right hand, and a ball of flame condensed in his palm, and then with a boom, it turned into an even bigger sun. What are you so happy about? Everything is just the beginning. Fatty Sue held the 9-toothed rake in both hands, but he had already thought of a countermeasure in his heart. His ice and snow attacks will melt when exposed to the sun, so active attack is not the best option. Think about what the boss would do at this time. Since there is no good way to defeat the opponent, think about how to protect yourself first. There is a sea under his feet, but it is a pity that Fatty Sue's ability cannot control the water flow. Otherwise, he can restrain the opponent's ability very well. Water. Wait a minute. Fatty Sue stared at Gawain, who was floating in the sky like the sun god, and a new idea came to his mind. When the ice melts, water will be produced. If I want to completely extinguish his flames, I need water. He looked up at the sky, and suddenly an idea came to his mind. Let's give it a try. There should be no problem. Fatty Sue smashed the nine-toothed rake hard on the ice with both hands. The blue ice power poured into the sea, freezing a large amount of water into ice. Then he suddenly exerted force with both hands and dug a piece of iceberg out from the ice like a potato and threw it at Gawain. Gawain frowned. So, what's the point? Above the sun, flames like a crown swirled, and the extended flames swept across the front, instantly melting a small half of the iceberg, and then quickly turned into steam at an extremely fast speed. Fatty Sue ran quickly on the ice, constantly digging out icebergs with the nine-toothed rake and attacking Gawain. Want to consume my power in this way? Gawain said lightly. That's too stupid. He pointed his finger to the sky. The source of my power is the sun. It's now more than 10 o'clock in the morning. The power of the sun will only become more and more intense, and my power will become stronger and stronger. It's really stupid to try to consume the flames of an Epsilon-level alien. Fatty Sue ignored Gawain's words and continued to do the same action. Boom, boom, boom. The icebergs were thrown towards Gawain, making a whistling sound. Gawain did not expend much strength. The sun crown extended out and melted all the icebergs. The sky was filled with steam rising up and surging into the sky. Dear viewers, thanks for staying with me. We'll try to get you more updates. Please like and subscribe and share the video with your friends. Love you all.